Hello and welcome back to Fallout 76. Today we're going to have a look at my Unarmed Choo-Choo's build. So basically it's just combining an unarmed power armor build with the Choo-Choo's legendary effect. So Choo-Choo's is a 4-star legendary effect that is for power armor only. It gives you a 10% chance for 500 damage and bloody mess when sprinting into targets, and it's up to 50% chance on a full stack. So if you have 5 pieces, which I do, you have a 50% chance of doing that 500 damage when sprinting into a target. So first, let's have a look at the legendary perks. So since this is an unarmed build, we'll be using Exploding Palm, which gives a 20% chance for unarmed weapons to trigger an explosion. Now, I do have Taken One for the team, which gives a nice buff. However, I'm not having a teammate for the video, so this will not come into play. And then Electric Absorption. For me, this is kind of an automatic one. Anytime I'm running power armor, it makes basically any enemy that uses energy weapons kind of useless against you. I mean, they heal you and they recharge your fusion cores. So yeah, it makes robots kind of a non-thing. So since I have a lot of perks in here that really aren't going to affect the unarmed part of it or the build at all, I'm only going to cover the perks that actually matter. So we have Traveling Pharmacy, chems are heavy, and you can't have a backpack with power armor. Iron Fist, because it is an unarmed build, so we might as well get that extra damage. So then we have Full Charge, and I would say this is an optional perk. You don't really need it, but I had an extra point into strength, and I didn't know what to do with it. So here you go. This basically just reduces the fusion core drain from sprinting. Then we have Incisor, where that gives us 75% armor penetration. And then we have Pain Train, so we devastate and stagger enemies by sprinting into them with power armor. So the difference between Pain Train and Choo-Choo's is that Pain Train should trigger every single time, and the damage I think is about 1/10 of what Choo-Choo's does. So it's a lot less damage, but this should trigger every time. Plus it does give you that stagger when you run into enemies. And then we have Grenadier. This is basically for Exploding Palm. Because that is an explosion, Grenadier should increase the radius of that. So that's why we have that. And under Endurance, I would consider all of these perks except Starch Jeans to be optional because we do have mutations, we want that. But we do have Fireproof, reduce explosion damage, Vaccinated, reduce disease chance, Thirst Quencher, extra AP based on Endurance, Natural Resistance, which will give us extra resistance from fire, poison, and cryo. This one actually I would say you probably want as well. Through Hiker, we do use food buffs, and food can get heavy if you have too much of it. Iron Stomach, which gives you extra damage and energy resistance, which is really not necessary on power armor, but we'll take it when we can get it. And Life Giver, just to give us more health. Strange in Numbers, that can definitely boost the benefit from the mutations, but I am running without a team at the moment, so this won't be doing anything for the video. And Tenderizer, a little bit of extra damage on that second attack. Now I do have Power User, but you could easily run without that. We're not using VATs, we're just running and punching things, so I would say Power User is completely optional here. Demolition Expert, this is for Exploding Palm as well. Since it is an explosion, we might as well try and increase the damage of that. Batteries included, that's mainly because we have fusion cores and they can get pretty heavy. So I'd consider Action Boy kind of an optional perk. I have lots of points in agility and there's really not much that helps the build, so it's there to help us out a little bit. We have this and Company T for our AP regen. Born Survivor, this is nice. That way I don't have to pay attention to my health at all. And we have Adrenaline. If we're fighting a big crowd of enemies, this will help us keep getting more and more damage. Bloody Mess, a little bit of extra damage as well. Ricochet, I would say Ricochet is a pretty important perk here. A lot of ranged attacks will just ricochet back and kill the enemies. Class Freak, we do have some mutations that give us negative effects to our strength, so that's why this is here. And Good with Salt, we do have a lot of food and we don't want it to spoil. So for mutations, we have Twisted Muscles, which is going to give us extra 25% melee damage and a chance to cripple. Then we have Talons, which gives us 25% more unarmed damage, and plus 25 bleed damage over 5 seconds, which the bleed damage isn't very much. We're mostly using it for the extra 25%. We have Speed Demon, extra movement speed. Marsupial, this will combine with the mods on our power armor to give us some pretty high jumps, which is kind of fun. Herb Mentality, extra +2 to our specials. If we were on a team, that would be +3. Now, Eagle Eyes is not doing anything for us, but I didn't want to redo all of my mutations, so I just left that in there. That's one of the reasons I have Class Freak. So we're taking 1 hit to strength, which is not that big of a deal. Carnivore, we're a melee character, so we're using using meat, so definitely want to get double the benefit from that. And Bird Bones, the main reason for that is because we'll be jumping pretty high, and we want to do whatever we can to reduce the superhero landing that we get from landing in power armor. So as far as food buffs, I would say Company T is important. This is basically our main source of AP regen. Although with our high agility and high endurance, we're not really going to go through AP all that much. So you don't really need that. But again, it's easy to do Company T, so that's why we have that. We're using Deathclaw Wellington. That's extra strength, which you definitely want as a melee build. Pemmican, that's an easy camp item, so might as well take that. That'll give us extra boost to all those endurance perks. Perfect Bubblegum, because we are using Overeaters, so we want to keep our food and drink meter at full. And Tasty Yao Guai Roast for extra melee damage. Any of the tasty foods work. Tasty Yao Guai Roast, Tasty Mutant Hound, Stew, and Tasty Mutton Meat Pie. They all give the same bonus. So what we have is every piece is modded the same. We've got Overeaters, +2 strength as that second star because we want to do as much damage as possible with our melee attacks. And I have Arms Keeper. The main reason for that, there's not really any third star that would necessarily benefit the melee build. And it's nice when I go to an event, something like Eviction Notice, or basically just running around and I'm area looting. It's nice not to get over encumbered when you pick up a ton of weapons. So that's my main reason for using that. And then of course we have that 4-star Choo-Choo's effect. So as far as the leg mods go, I am using Vulcan, which has the Elastic Servos mod, which increases your jump height, and that does stack. So each leg will increase that even more, and it stacks with Marsupial as well. So our jump height is pretty high. Now, as far as the torso, you could go a lot of ways here. I like the reactive plates because that just reflects back the melee damage from melee attackers. It's plus 50% melee damage reflection. So melee enemies will actually hit themselves to death if you just stand there and let them hit you. So we are using Tesla bracers for our unarmed attack. Vulcan Power Armor does have their own, they have ultrasight bracers, which add poison damage to melee attacks. What I found is ultrasight bracers are pretty terrible for a melee, for melee, especially when you compare it to Tesla bracers. They are really good. It says plus 45 unarmed damage, but that doesn't do it justice. You'll see in a little bit how much damage you can actually do with Tesla bracers. So I have been using this build for a couple of days now, and I gotta say, it works pretty well. I've used it in events. The one thing I haven't done is raids because I'm trying to not use ranged weapons. I'm trying just to use this as an unarmed. It didn't trigger. It's not triggering. It knows I'm recording and it decided not to. There we go. There we go. That triggered. So let's just test the jump height here. Do the big jump. Yeah, the jump height is really high, and yeah, there we go. One of the reasons I'm not using, and you can see, there we go. There's a punch. One of the reasons I'm not using a jetpack is the jump height is just so ridiculous. So, and that leaning forward thing, so when I'm running it leans left, that's actually Pain Train. If you have the Pain Train perk equipped, that's what does that run there. And the hitbox on this seems to be pretty generous. At first I thought there was an area of effect with this because I'd run into a group of enemies and it would take them all out. So it kind of felt like there was something going on with area of effect, and there isn't that. It just seems to have a pretty generous hitbox. And hard to run into stuff, so we'll do a power attack there, and look at that. Just one punch on super mutants with a power attack. We'll do another one here where it's, well, this is level 60, so we don't want to do that. Let's run into them and see what we do. Go back for another pass. Sometimes it doesn't want to, it's one of those things, so that's why we have the unarmed build, so we can do that, and then we jump up really high and just try and run into them if we can. Did that work? Did it work? Oh yeah, it did. It took up most of his damage and finish him off with a power attack, which is, wow, that was kind of fun. So I have been running this for a couple days, and I'm trying to do this without ranged weapons. I haven't been using them at all. And so doing a raid really isn't, unless I'm just gonna stand there and let my teammates carry me during the boss fights, it doesn't really seem reasonable to do that. So I haven't taken this into a raid. One of the things I'm kind of curious about though is if that Pain Train, the stagger from Pain Train would actually work on the stalkers. It would actually stagger them. And I don't know the answer to that. So if anyone's actually tried Pain Train, leave a comment, on the stalkers, because I am curious as to know what it would do. All right, what I want to test here is let's test this. Let's see how we do against, okay, it's hard to run in this. Let's see if that would, yeah, Gulpers tend to be pretty tanky. What I actually wanted to test was the unarmed damage. Try a power attack against them. So you can see the unarmed is hitting. I mean, 1600, 1500 with a punch is, that's no joke. So you look at the description on the Tesla bracers and it says plus 45 unarmed damage, and you think, well, that's not really much at all. But then when you actually put the Tesla bracers on, it's just crazy how much damage they do with just with the punching attacks. I was doing a Scorched Earth yesterday, and punching the Queen, I was hitting the Queen for 2,000 and 3,000 with just my fists. And there's Ricochet doing its thing. Run into him. Hopefully that'll trigger. Yep, there we go. So the damage is just kind of anything you do does pretty good damage. Now we're obviously in an enclosed spot, so punch everyone to death. There we go. There we go. And Ricochet, yeah, between Ricochet and punching. Oh, there we go. Let's see how we do against this guy. You can see the jumps, and we'll probably get a superhero landing, yeah, because we are so high. The jumps are crazy. And that's one of those things that I don't know that I would keep this long term, because eventually it gets kind of annoying where you can't do just a regular jump. Let's see, how we doing here against, yeah, it's actually pretty good. Let's try a punch attack and see how we do. A couple of punches should finish him off, so yeah, pretty nice. But it does get kind of annoying not being able to do a regular size jump. Let's see, we've got, okay, we're killing stuff with Ricochet, and we're basically just walking death with this build, or running death, I guess. Because you kill stuff with Ricochet, you kill stuff by running into it, you kill stuff by punching it, and we don't even need a weapon. So there we go. Can we jump up this high? Nope, I can't, but all the enemies are dead, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, the jump height is really fun. It's just one of those things that, this is a lot of fun to be able to jump like this. Feel kind of like a superhero as far as that goes, leaping buildings in a single bound. But when you want to do just a little hop, you are completely out of luck. I wish there was some sort of way to modulate the jumps. Just punch him. I'm not sure if power attacks actually do... If the difference with power attack versus a regular punching attack is any different in terms of damage. Let's see, punch him, because it seems to be kind of the same numbers no matter how I do it. So here's a regular attack. Okay, well that's way less, 800 versus over 1,000. And I think we're running out of enemies is the problem. I found one more enemy that wants to die, and then I have another one over here that's shooting at me. Let's see if we can do... I love the jump on this. The jump on this is so fun. And we get, yep, we got that to trigger. So the way that this works, the Choo-Choos works, it's 500 damage, and it's actually damage over time for 1 second. So it's 500 damage over 1 second, which is why there's a little bit of a delay from running into them to when they die. So this is one of those builds that, I mean, for the most part, I'm doing it because it's silly, but you can actually run this build. It's actually not one of those builds that's silly, but not really practical. It, okay. A little bit of stagger from them and punch them. There we go. So you can actually run it. It's actually not that bad. So if you, even with a raid, you could actually do a raid. You just have to be willing to carry some sort of ranged weapon so you can help contribute to those boss fights. But other than that, I run it in quite a few events. I did this in Eviction Notice, and it was so much fun in Eviction Notice, just running around, jumping really high, and punching super mutants to death. Whoops, there we go. I kind of wish we had that perk from Fallout 4 when you land in power armor that does, you know, when you have the high jumps and you land, it does damage to enemies, and the higher up that you're dropping from, the more damage it does. That would be perfect for this build. Unfortunately, that perk does not exist in this game. One thing I have not tested this build against is a Mirelurk Queen, and we're gonna rectify that right now. Regular Mirelurks shouldn't be much of a problem when this triggers. There we go. But a Mirelurk, in fact, I don't think I've tested against kings either. So there's a king. Let's see how we do. How much damage is that? I mean, 500 really isn't a lot when it comes to them because they are pretty tanky. Blood Eagles, I imagine, not going to be much of a problem. In fact, we'll just punch them. And yep, Exploding Palm does nice work there. Let's see, a power attack on Mirelurk King. So yeah, punch them to the, just a lot of punching. I wish martial artists worked for punching it, for unarmed attacks. I mean, it doesn't, so there's no way to swing up your fists, which I always thought was kind of weird. You can speed up your, you can speed up a weapon, but once I drop the weapon, all of a sudden I swing slower, which doesn't, to me, make a ton of sense. But it is what it is, and there we go. So I want to get her out here. I don't really want to fight in the water. That's just going to be, I can't punch the nuke card up there. Oh, I like the jump. The high jumps are so much fun. So come on, come out here. This is what I want. I'm not going to fight her on her territory. Now, the tough part with this is going to be, let's see, I've Born Survivor, so I don't really need to do. Let's see if we can do a Head of Steam and run into her and see what that does. Doesn't seem like much, so we're gonna have to, yeah, if I run her to death, that'll take forever. So let's try some power, oh, that's nice. Try some power attacks against her and see what we do. 26, yeah, not a lot of damage, actually. She's so tanky, but level 100. But we're still, pretty decent damage. Let's do a power attack. 700 damage, okay. Probably not the ideal way to fight her, but she's actually going down, reasonably well. And yeah, there we go. 1,000 damage on that. So yeah, that worked out all right. So I want to try this against the Scorch Beast, but to do that, I'm gonna have to cheat a little. We're gonna have to use a gun to get it to land. So that's what we're going to do. I'm gonna need some VATS help here though. All right, there we go. The left wing is crippled, so it's just a matter of time before it lands, and maybe. Okay, why can't I jump? It's got a crippled wing. All right, here we go. Let's see how we could do against a Scorch Beast, level 100. Do some of those. Let's do a power attack. All right, so we're doing okay. We'll be able to take it out relatively quickly, actually. It looks like, as long as it stays on the ground. We'll do a power attack on you. One more. There we go. All right, that worked out pretty well. So overall, I'm actually very happy with this build. It's a lot of fun, but it's not just something silly. It actually has a lot of utility for it. I mean, I've run it at events. I think if you just add a gun to it, you'd be able to do raids with it as well. So yeah, overall, very happy with this. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please hit one of the buttons, and I hope you'll join me in the next one. Thank you very much.